So picture this at USA's a typical Thursday morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, and I am sitting at the breakfast table, still half asleep. My wife, Emily, is making her usual scrambled eggs while I am nursing a cup of coffee, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. Everything seemed normal until she sat down across from me, a strange look in her eyes. "I slept with my boss last night," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "He was really good in bed, so I plan to do it again." I choked on my coffee, the hot liquid scorching my throat as I sputtered in disbelief. My hands trembled, causing the cup to slip from my grasp and crash to the floor, splashing hot coffee everywhere. Emily jumped back, screaming as the hot liquid hit her legs. In that moment, everything seemed to freeze. Her scream cut through the air, a stark contrast to the mundane morning routine. I stared at her, my mind reeling from the shock of her confession. How could she just casually drop a bomb like that? It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down in an instant. "Are you out of your mind?" I finally managed to croak out, my voice hoarse and filled with anger. "How can you say something like that so casually?" She looked at me, her eyes cold and unfeeling. "I just thought you should know. It's not like I am planning on stopping." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, was telling me she planned to continue her affair without any remorse. The betrayal cut deep, and a dark, vengeful part of me wanted to make her feel the same pain she was causing me. My hands clenched into fists as I stood up, my body trembling with a mixture of rage and hurt. "Get out!" I said through gritted teeth. "Get out of this house, now!" She stared at me, her expression unchanging. "I am not leaving. We need to talk about this like adults." "Talk about what?" I snapped. "You've already made it clear where you stand. There's nothing left to say." Emily sighed, shaking her head. "You're overreacting. This doesn't change anything between us. I still love you." "Love?" I scoffed, feeling a bitter laugh bubbling up inside me. "You call this love? You betrayed me, Emily. You betrayed our marriage." She rolled her eyes, a condescending smile playing on her lips. "Oh, come on. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything." The casual dismissal of our vows, of our bond, was too much. I stormed out of the kitchen, needing to put as much distance between us as possible before I did something I might regret. I headed upstairs, grabbing a suitcase and furiously packing my clothes. If she wasn't going to leave, then I would. As I threw my belongings into the suitcase, I could hear her following me, her voice trailing after me. "Patty, please. You're being ridiculous. We can work through this." I ignored her, my mind made up. There was no way I could stay in the same house with her after what she'd done. I zipped up the suitcase and brushed past her, my heart aching with every step. "I am leaving," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And when I come back, you better be gone." I didn't wait for her response. I headed straight for the garage, throwing my suitcase into the trunk of my car. As I drove away, the reality of the situation started to sink in. My wife had cheated on me, and she wasn't even sorry. She had no intention of stopping. As I drove aimlessly, my thoughts were a chaotic mess. How did we get here? Where did it all go wrong? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? The future seemed uncertain, a tangled web of emotions and decisions that I wasn't ready to face. But one thing was clear: my life was never going to be the same again. I found myself parked in front of a dingy motel on the edge of town, my mind still reeling from Emily's confession. The neon sign flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows across the lot. I booked a room, barely processing the details as the clerk handed me the key. My hands were still shaking when I finally collapsed onto the lumpy mattress. I stared at the ceiling, the events of the morning replaying in my mind like a broken record. Emily's cold, matter-of-fact tone haunted me. How could she be so casual about something so devastating? I felt a surge of anger, mingling with the deep ache of betrayal. I couldn't stay in that house, not with her. Hours passed in a haze, the muffled sounds of traffic outside a distant backdrop to my chaotic thoughts. Eventually, I forced myself to get up and go through the motions of checking my phone. There were several missed calls and texts from Emily, each one more frantic than the last. "Patty, please come back. We need to talk. I'm sorry, let's just work this out. Why aren't you answering? This is ridiculous. I couldn't bring myself to reply. I needed space, time to think. Her messages only fueled my anger, reminding me of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. Instead, I decided to call my best friend Tom. He picked up after a couple of rings, his voice groggy. Hey man, what's up? It's just kinda early, he said, stifling a yawn. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. Tom, I need to talk to you. Can we meet up? Sure, he replied, concern creeping into his tone. Is everything okay? No, I said, my voice cracking. It's not. I need a friend right now. We agreed to meet at a nearby diner, and I hung up, feeling a small sense of relief. Tom had always been there for me, and I desperately needed his support. I drove to the diner, the familiar neon lights a stark contrast to the uncertainty I felt inside. Tom was already there when I arrived, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked up as I slid into the booth across from him, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Patty, you look like hell, he said, not unkindly. What is going on? I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Emily cheated on me. She told me this morning, just blurted it out over breakfast like it was nothing. She said she's been sleeping with her boss and plans to keep doing it. Tom's eyes widened in shock, and he leaned back, letting out a low whistle. Damn, man, I am so sorry. I can't even imagine what you are going through. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. I don't know what to do, Tom. I left the house, but I can just run away forever. Tom reached across the table, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. You're right. You need to face this head on, but you don't have to do it alone. Let us figure this out together. We spent the next couple of hours talking, my coffee growing cold as I poured out my heart. Tom listened, offering advice and support without judgment. He suggested I take a few days to clear my head, maybe stay with him for a while. I agreed, grateful for the lifeline. As I drove to Tom's place, I couldn't help but think about the future. Emily and I had built a life together, and now it felt like everything was crumbling. But I knew one thing for sure: I needed to confront her, to demand answers, and decide what came next. Tom's apartment was a welcome refuge, a stark contrast to the sterile motel room. He set up a makeshift bed on the couch for me, promising to be there whenever I needed to talk. That night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a flicker of determination. Emily had shattered my trust, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I needed to confront her, to face the reality of our situation, and decide whether there was anything left to salvage. Tomorrow, I would go back to the house, but for tonight, I would try to find some semblance of peace in the midst of the chaos. The next morning, I woke up early, the weight of yesterday's revelation still heavy on my chest. Tom was already up, making coffee in the kitchen. He glanced over at me with a sympathetic smile. Morning, man. How'd you sleep? He asked, handing me a cup of coffee. I shrugged, taking a sip. Not great, but thanks for letting me crash here. Anytime, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. So, what's the plan? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I need to go back to the house and talk to Emily. We can't avoid this conversation forever. Tom nodded, his expression serious. You want me to come with you? No, I replied, shaking my head. I need to do this alone, but I appreciate the offer. After a quick breakfast, I drove back to the house, my stomach in knots. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Emily's car parked outside. She was home. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before heading inside. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale and drawn. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and anxiety. Patty, she said softly, standing up. I'm so glad you came back. We need to talk. I nodded, taking a seat across from her. Yeah, we do. And I need you to be completely honest with me, Emily. Why did you do it? Why him? She sighed, looking down at her hands. It's complicated. I never meant to hurt you, it just happened. We've been growing apart, and I felt lonely. My boss, Mark, he noticed. He was there for me in a way you haven't been lately. Her words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. So you thought cheating was the solution? Instead of talking to me, you decided to betray our marriage? Tears welled up in her eyes. I know it was wrong, Patty, but I was desperate for something, anything to fill the void. I shook my head, anger bubbling up inside me. That is a pathetic excuse, Emily. We all have rough patches, but we don't resort to infidelity. You could have talked to me, gone to counseling, anything but this. She wiped her eyes, her voice trembling. I know, and I am sorry. I just didn't know how to handle it. But I still love you and I want to make this work. I stared at her, feeling a mix of emotions. How can I trust you again? You didn't just make a mistake, Emily. You made a choice, over and over again. She reached across the table, grabbing my hand. I'll do anything to make it right. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Please, Patty, don't to throw away what we have. I pulled my hand back, needing space. I don't know if we can come back from this, Emily. You broke something fundamental between us. Trust isn't it something you can just glue back together. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavy in the air. Finally, I stood up, feeling the need to get out of the suffocating atmosphere. I need time to think, I said quietly. I can't make any decisions right now. I need to process everything. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here waiting. And I am so sorry. I walked out of the house, the door closing behind me with a finality that felt like the end of an era. As I got into my car, I felt a sense of relief mixed with uncertainty. This wasn't something that could be resolved overnight. I drove aimlessly for a while, my mind racing with thoughts and emotions. I ended up at a park, the tranquil surroundings a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I found a bench and sat down, staring out at the calm water, trying to make sense of everything. Emily's betrayal had shattered my world, but I knew I couldn't let it define me. I needed to decide what was best for me, whether that meant trying to rebuild our marriage or walking away. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I had to find a way to heal, with or without Emily. As the sun began to set, I felt a small sense of clarity. This was the beginning of a long journey, and I would take it one step at a time. For now, I would focus on myself, my needs, and my path to recovery. The rest would come in time. I spent the next few days at Tom's place, grateful for his unwavering support. He was there when I needed to talk, but he also gave me space when I needed to be alone with my thoughts. It was exactly what I needed. However, I knew that I couldn't stay in limbo forever. It was time to start figuring out my next steps. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching TV, Tom turned to me, a thoughtful look on his face. Patty, have you considered talking to a therapist? It might help you sort through all this. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I have been thinking about it. I don't know where to start, though. Tom picked up his phone and started typing. I know a good therapist. A friend of mine saw him during a tough time, and he really helped. I'll text you his details. Thanks, man, I said, feeling a glimmer of hope. I think I'll give him a call. The next day, I called the therapist, Dr. Harris, and made an appointment. Just making that call felt like a step in the right direction. Maybe this would help me make sense of everything. When I arrived at Dr. Harris's office, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. The waiting room was calm and inviting, with soft music playing in the background. A few minutes later, a door opened, and a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor stepped out. Patty, right? Come on in, he said, extending his hand. I shook his hand and followed him into his office, taking a seat on a comfortable chair. Thanks for seeing me on such short notice, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Of course, Dr. Harris replied, sitting across from me. Why don't you start by telling me what brought you here today? I took a deep breath and began to recount everything Emily's confession, the pain and betrayal I felt, and the uncertainty about our future. Dr. Harris listened intently, nodding occasionally but letting me speak without interruption. When I finished, he leaned forward slightly. It sounds like you are dealing with a lot of complex emotions. It's perfectly natural to feel overwhelmed in a situation like this. Infidelity can be incredibly traumatic. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. I just don't know what to do. Part of me wants to try and work things out, but another part of me doesn't think I can ever trust her again. Dr. Harris gave me a sympathetic look. Trust is a fundamental part of any relationship, and once it has broken, it can be very difficult to rebuild. It's important to take the time to really understand your feelings and what you want moving forward. Counseling can be a helpful way to navigate these emotions. Do you think it is possible to rebuild trust after something like this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It is possible, Dr. Harris replied, but it is not easy. It takes a lot of effort, commitment, and willingness from both partners. It also requires a deep understanding of why the infidelity happened and addressing any underlying issues in the relationship. I absorbed his words, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. So, what should I do next? Well, Dr. Harris said, the first step is to take care of yourself. You need to make sure you are in a good place emotionally before making any major decisions. We can work together to help you process your feelings and develop a clearer sense of what you want. If you decide that you want to try and work things out with Emily, couples therapy could be beneficial. But if you decide that you can move past this, we can also work on how to navigate that path. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. Okay, that sounds like a plan. Over the next few weeks, I saw Dr. Harris regularly. Our sessions were tough, but they helped me start to process my emotions and gain a clearer understanding of my needs and boundaries. During this time, Emily continued to reach out, apologizing and asking for a chance to make things right. Each message tore at my heart, but I needed this time to focus on myself. One evening, after a particularly intense session with Dr. Harris, I decided it was time to meet with Emily and discuss the future. I called her and asked if we could meet at a neutral place, a quiet cafe downtown. She agreed, and we set a time for the following day. As I walked into the cafe, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. Emily was already there, sitting at a corner table, her face pale and anxious. She looked up as I approached, and for a moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. "Hi, Patty," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Thank you for meeting with me." I nodded, taking a seat across from her. "We need to talk, Emily, about everything." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know. I have been doing a lot of thinking, and I'm so sorry for what I did. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'll do anything to make it right." "Emily," I said, my voice steady but firm, "I have been seeing a therapist, and it's helped me a lot. I've had time to think about what I want and what I need, and I need to know if you are truly committed to doing whatever it takes to rebuild our trust, even if it means facing some uncomfortable truths about our relationship." She nodded vigorously. "Yes, I am committed. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything. I just want us to be okay again." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision I was about to make. "All right. I am willing to try, but this is going to be a long and difficult process. We need to be honest with each other, and we need to face the issues that led us here. If at any point I feel like it is not working, we need to be prepared to accept that and move on." Emily reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "Thank you, Patty. I promise I'll do everything I can to make this work." As we sat there, holding hands, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, but for the first time since her confession, I felt like there was a chance we could rebuild what had been broken. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but I was willing to try. The days following our meeting at the cafe were a whirlwind of emotions. Emily and I agreed to start couples therapy, and we scheduled our first session with Dr. Harris. There was a palpable tension between us, a mix of hope and uncertainty. The road ahead was going to be tough, but we both knew it was necessary if we had any chance of rebuilding our relationship. Our first therapy session was nerve-wracking. We sat in Dr. Harris's office, side by side, but feeling miles apart. Dr. Harris began by setting the ground rules: open communication, honesty, and a commitment to working through the issues together. "Emily, why don't you start by explaining why the affair happened?" Dr. Harris prompted gently. Emily took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I've been feeling disconnected from Patty for a long time. It's like we were living parallel lives, but never really intersecting. Mark noticed. He made me feel seen and appreciated. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate for connection. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my emotions in check. Why didn't you talk to me about how you were feeling? She looked down, guilt etched on her face. I was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't understand, afraid of hurting you. So I kept it inside until it was too late. Dr. Harris nodded. Patty, how does that make you feel? Angry, I admitted, my voice shaking. Betrayed, but also sad. I wish you had come to me, Emily. I would have tried to fix things. Dr. Harris guided us through the session, helping us to express our feelings and start to understand each other as perspectives. It was painful and uncomfortable, but it felt like a necessary first step. After the session, we drove home in silence. Once we were inside, Emily turned to me, her eyes red from crying. Thank you for giving this a chance, Patty. I know it is not easy. I sighed, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. It's not, but if we are going to try, we need to give it our all. The next few weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. We attended therapy sessions regularly, each one peeling back layers of hurt and mistrust. We also started spending more time together, trying to reconnect. It was awkward at first, like we were relearning how to be a couple. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch watching TV, Emily turned to me. Patty, can we talk? I muted the TV, turning to face her. Sure. What is on your mind? She took a deep breath. I know I can undo what I did, but I want to make things right. I've been thinking about what I can do to show you that I am committed to rebuilding our trust. I nodded, curious. What do you have in mind? I want to be completely transparent, she said, her voice steady. No more secrets. You can have access to my phone, my emails, everything. I want to rebuild your trust, and I know that means being open and honest. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Okay, I said, feeling a glimmer of hope. I appreciate that, Emily. She handed me her phone, her eyes earnest. I want you to know that I am serious about this. I want to rebuild what we had. I took the phone, feeling a mixture of emotions. Trust was something that had to be earned back, and while this was a step in the right direction, I knew it would take time. We continued to work on our relationship, and slowly, things started to improve. There were still moments of tension and doubt, but we were making progress. We talked more openly about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. One weekend, we decided to go on a trip to the beach, a place that held fond memories for us. It was a chance to get away from everything and focus on each other. As we walked along the shoreline, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace that had been missing for a long time. Do you remember the last time we were here? Emily asked, her voice soft. I smiled, the memory surfacing. Yeah, our 3rd anniversary. We spent the whole day exploring and ended it with a picnic on the beach. She squeezed my hand. I want us to make new memories, Patty. I know it's going to take time, but I believe we can get through this. I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. I believe that too. It's not going to be easy, but I am willing to try. As the sun set over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the water, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time since Emily's confession, I felt like we were on the right path. We were both committed to rebuilding our relationship, and that was the most important thing. The next morning, we sat on the porch of our beachside cabin, sipping coffee and watching the waves. It was a simple moment, but it felt significant. We were here, together, and that was a step forward. Patty, Emily said, breaking the comfortable silence. I know I've said it before, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am. I never meant to hurt you. I reached over and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. I know, Emily, and I'm trying to forgive you. It's a process, but I'm getting there. We sat there, hand in hand, the sound of the ocean a soothing backdrop to our thoughts. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were walking it together. As the weeks turned into months, Emily and I continued to navigate the rocky terrain of rebuilding our relationship. Therapy sessions with Dr. Harris became a regular part of our routine, helping us to communicate more effectively and understand each other's perspectives better. It was a slow and sometimes painful process, but it felt like we were making real progress. One evening, after a particularly productive therapy session, Emily suggested we have a date night. It had been a while since we had done something just for fun, and the idea of spending time together without the weight of our issues hanging over us sounded refreshing. We decided to go to a small Italian restaurant downtown, a place we had always loved. As we sat across from each other, enjoying a bottle of wine and delicious food, it almost felt like old times. We laughed, reminisced, and for a few hours the tension between us melted away. "I missed this," Emily said, her eyes sparkling in the candlelight. "I missed us." "Me too," I admitted, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. It's nice to just enjoy each other's company again. After dinner, we took a walk through the nearby park, the cool night air refreshing. We held hands, our fingers intertwined, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. The path ahead was still uncertain, but moments like this gave me hope that we could find our way back to each other. As we rounded a corner, we came across a small playground. Emily's eyes lit up, and she pulled me towards the swings. "Come on, let's be kids again." I laughed, feeling a bit silly, but followed her lead. We sat on the swings, gently swaying back and forth, talking about everything and nothing. It was a simple, carefree moment, and it reminded me of why I had fallen in love with her in the first place. "Patty," Emily said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I want you to know that I am committed to us. I know I have said it before, but I really mean it. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life making this right." I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "I love you too, Emily, and I believe in us. It's going to take time, but I think we can get through this." She smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that warmed my heart. "Thank you, Patty. That means the world to me." As we walked back to the car, hand in hand, I felt a sense of optimism that had been missing for a long time. We were making progress, and while the road ahead was still uncertain, I felt confident that we were moving in the right direction. Over the next few weeks, we continued to build on the progress we had made. We spent more time together, finding new ways to connect and rediscovering the things we loved about each other. We also continued our therapy sessions, which helped us navigate the inevitable bumps in the road. One Saturday morning, we decided to tackle a project together, redecorating the living room. It was something we had talked about for a while, and it felt like a positive step forward, a way to create a fresh start in our home. We spent the day picking out paint colors, choosing new furniture, and rearranging the space. It was a fun, collaborative effort, and by the end of the day, we were both exhausted but happy with the results. As we sat on our new couch admiring our handiwork, Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. "This feels good, doesn't it? Like a fresh start." I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. "Yeah, it does. It feels really good." In the weeks that followed, we continued to make positive changes. We started going on more date nights, planning weekend getaways, and even took up a new hobby together, hiking. Being out in nature, away from the distractions of daily life, gave us a chance to reconnect and enjoy each other's company. One weekend, we decided to tackle a challenging trail that led to a beautiful overlook. As we hiked, we talked about our hopes and dreams for the future, the things we wanted to achieve both individually and as a couple. It was a long and arduous climb, but when we finally reached the top, the breathtaking view made it all worth it. We stood there, taking in the stunning panorama, and I felt a sense of accomplishment and hope. This hike, with all its challenges and rewards, felt like a metaphor for our journey. It had been tough, but we were making progress, and the view from the top was worth it. "Look at this," Emily said, her voice filled with awe. "It is beautiful." "It is," I agreed, wrapping my arm around her. "Just like us." As we stood there watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead was still uncertain, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges to face. But I felt confident that we could handle them together. Our journey was far from over, but for the first time since Emily's confession, I felt like we were truly moving forward. We were rebuilding our relationship, one step at a time, and that gave me hope for the future. As we made our way back down the trail, hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of determination. We had come a long way, and while there was still work to be done, I was committed to making it work. With each step, I felt more confident that we could overcome this and build a stronger, more resilient relationship. And as the sun set behind us, casting a warm glow over the path, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, one step at a time. Our progress, while encouraging, wasn't without its setbacks. Rebuilding trust and reconnecting after such a significant betrayal was a complicated and often messy process. There were days when the memories of Emily's affair would resurface, bringing with them a wave of doubt and pain. However, we were committed to facing these challenges head-on, together. One evening, after a particularly difficult therapy session, Emily and I sat in the living room, the tension between us palpable. We had been discussing the affair in detail, and it had brought up a lot of raw emotions. "I know it's hard," Emily said softly, breaking the silence. "Talking about it, reliving it, but I think it is important. We need to face this head-on if we are ever going to move past it." I nodded, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. "I get that. It's just, sometimes it's overwhelming. I still have so many questions." She looked at me, her eyes filled with remorse. "Ask me anything, Patty. I want to be as open as possible." Taking a deep breath, I decided to voice one of the questions that had been gnawing at me. "Why didn't you stop? Even after the first time, why did you keep seeing him?" Emily sighed, her gaze dropping to her hands. I wish I had a simple answer. It was a combination of things. Part of me felt like I had already crossed a line, so what difference did it make if I kept going? Another part of me felt a twisted sense of validation. Mark made me feel wanted, appreciated. It's not an excuse, just the truth. Hearing her explanation was painful but also necessary. It gave me a clearer picture of the complexities behind her actions, even if it didn't make the betrayal any easier to bear. We spent the next few hours talking, delving into the details of her affair, her feelings, and my own struggles. It was emotionally exhausting, but by the end of the night, I felt a sense of clarity. We were peeling back the layers, getting to the root of the problem, and that was crucial for our healing. The following weekend, we decided to visit Emily's parents. They had always been supportive of our relationship, and we felt it was important to be open with them about what had happened. It was a difficult conversation, but we knew we needed their support. As we sat in their cozy living room, Emily's mom, Linda, looked at us with concern. "We are here for you both, no matter what. This must be incredibly hard." "It is," I admitted, feeling a lump in my throat. "But we are working on it. We are committed to rebuilding our relationship." Emily's dad, Frank, nodded thoughtfully. "It's good that you are facing this together. Trust is hard to rebuild, but it is not impossible. We are here for you every step of the way." Their support meant a lot to us, and it gave us the strength to keep moving forward. As we drove back home, Emily reached over and squeezed my hand. "I am really grateful for their support. It makes a big difference." "Yeah," I agreed, feeling a sense of warmth. "It does." The weeks continued to pass, and we kept pushing forward. We found new ways to reconnect and build positive memories together. We also started focusing on our individual growth, ensuring that we were both in a healthy place emotionally and mentally. One evening, while sitting on the porch, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Patty, I've been thinking about something. I want to volunteer at a local shelter. I feel like giving back, doing something positive, might help me heal and make amends in a way." I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "I think that's a great idea, Emily. Giving back can be really healing." She smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Would you like to join me? I think it could be something we do together, something positive for both of us." I nodded, feeling a sense of purpose. "I'd love to." Volunteering at the shelter became a regular part of our routine. It was rewarding and gave us a sense of fulfillment. It also provided a new way for us to bond, working together to help others. It was a positive step forward, one that reinforced our commitment to rebuilding our relationship. One day, as we were finishing up at the shelter, Emily turned to me with a hopeful expression. Patty, I know we've been through a lot, and there's still a long way to go. But I feel like we are making real progress. I feel closer to you than I have in a long time. I smiled, feeling a sense of warmth. I feel the same way, Emily. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer, one step at a time. As we walked back to the car, hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges to face. But for the first time in a long time, I felt confident that we were on the right path. We were building something new, something stronger, and that gave me hope for the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them together, with honesty, commitment, and a renewed sense of purpose. Despite the progress we had made, there were still moments of doubt and pain that would surface unexpectedly. The journey to rebuilding trust was anything but linear, and there were days when it felt like we were taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. One evening, I came home from work to find Emily sitting on the couch, staring at her phone with a troubled expression. She looked up as I walked in, and I could see the worry in her eyes. "What is wrong?" I asked, setting my bag down and sitting next to her. She hesitated, then handed me her phone. "Mark texted me. He wants to talk." A wave of anger and anxiety washed over me. "What does he want?" "I don't know," she said, her voice trembling. "I haven't responded. I wanted to talk to you first." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We agreed that you would cut all contact with him. You need to tell him that." She nodded, looking relieved. "I will. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page." I watched as she typed out a response, telling Mark that she didn't want any further contact and that she was committed to her marriage. She showed me the message before hitting send, and I felt a small sense of relief. "Thank you," I said, my voice softening. "I know it's not easy, but it is important." "I know," she replied, her eyes earnest. "I am committed to this, Patty. To us, the incident with Mark S. text brought up a lot of old wounds, but it also reinforced the importance of open communication and trust. We talked about it at our next therapy session, and Dr. Harris helped us navigate the emotions and reaffirm our commitment to each other. As the weeks passed, we continued to face challenges, but we also celebrated small victories. We found new ways to connect and build positive memories, and our relationship grew stronger with each passing day. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the mountains. It was a place we had always loved, and it felt like the perfect escape from the stresses of daily life. As we hiked through the beautiful trails, surrounded by nature, I felt a sense of peace and clarity. At the top of a particularly challenging trail, we found a secluded spot with a breathtaking view. We sat down, catching our breath and taking in the scenery. "This is beautiful," Emily said, her eyes shining with awe. "I am so glad we did this." "Me too," I replied, feeling a sense of contentment. "It's moments like these that make everything worth it." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence for a while. It was a simple moment, but it felt significant. We were here, together, and that was a step forward. As we made our way back down the trail, we talked about our future, our dreams, and the things we wanted to achieve. It felt good to look ahead, to focus on the positive and plan for the future. When we returned home, we felt refreshed and re-energized. We decided to keep the momentum going by setting new goals for our relationship. We made a list of things we wanted to do together, places to visit, hobbies to try, and projects to tackle. One of the projects we decided to take on was renovating our kitchen. It was something we had talked about for a while, and it felt like a positive step forward. We spent the next few weeks planning, shopping for materials, and working together to bring our vision to life. The process was challenging, but it also brought us closer together. We learned to communicate more effectively, to compromise, and to support each other through the ups and downs. By the time we finished, we were both proud of what we had accomplished. As we stood in our newly renovated kitchen, admiring the fruits of our labor, Emily turned to me with a smile. "We make a pretty good team, don't we?" I smiled back, feeling a sense of pride and joy. "Yeah, we do. The kitchen renovation was more than just a home improvement project. It was a symbol of our commitment to rebuilding our relationship. It showed us that we could work together, face challenges, and create something beautiful. Despite the setbacks and the challenges, we were moving forward. We were building something new and stronger, and that gave me hope for the future. As we sat down to enjoy our first meal in the new kitchen, I looked at Emily, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you for sticking with this, for working so hard to make things right. She reached across the table and took my hand. Thank you for giving us a chance. I love you, Patty. I love you too, Emily, I said, feeling a renewed sense of commitment and hope. Here's to new beginnings. We clinked our glasses together, toasting to our future and the journey ahead. The road was still uncertain, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges to face. But for the first time in a long time, I felt confident that we could handle them together, with honesty, commitment, and a renewed sense of purpose. Our kitchen renovation marked a turning point in our relationship. We were more connected, more understanding of each other's needs and emotions. It was as if working together on a tangible project had helped us to rebuild some of the trust and intimacy that had been shattered. As the weeks went by, we continued to focus on our relationship, setting aside time each week for date nights, open conversations, and new activities. One of the things we decided to do was join a local dance class. Neither of us had much experience with dancing, but it was something new and fun to try together. The first class was a mix of excitement and nervousness. We fumbled through the steps, laughing at our mistakes and encouraging each other to keep going. By the end of the class, we were both sweating and smiling, feeling a sense of accomplishment. This was fun, Emily said as we walked to the car. I didn't realize how much I missed doing new things with you. Me too, I agreed. It's nice to have something to look forward to together. Our weekly dance classes became a highlight of our routine. It wasn't just about learning to dance, it was about reconnecting, supporting each other, and having fun. It reminded us of the joy and excitement that had brought us together in the first place. One evening after class, as we were sitting on the couch, Emily turned to me with a serious expression. Patty, there is something I've been thinking about. I looked at her, curious. What is it? I want to renew our wedding vows, she said, her eyes filled with emotion. I want to reaffirm our commitment to each other, to show that we are starting fresh. The idea took me by surprise, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I think that's a wonderful idea, Emily. It could be a powerful way to mark this new chapter in our lives. She smiled, relief and happiness evident on her face. I'm glad you think so. Let us start planning it. We decided to keep the vow renewal ceremony small and intimate, inviting only our closest friends and family. It was important to us that the day be meaningful and focused on our commitment to each other. Over the next few weeks, we planned the ceremony together, choosing a beautiful outdoor location, writing our vows, and selecting meaningful readings and music. It was a collaborative effort, and it brought us even closer together. The day of the ceremony arrived, and as we stood before our loved ones, I felt a deep sense of love and gratitude. Emily looked stunning in a simple, elegant dress, and I could see the emotion in her eyes as she looked at me. We exchanged our vows, speaking from the heart about our journey, our love, and our commitment to each other. As I spoke my vows, I felt a renewed sense of trust and hope. We had been through so much, but we had come out stronger on the other side. I promised to love you, to support you, and to always be honest with you, I said, my voice steady. I promise to work together with you to build a future filled with love, trust, and happiness. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she spoke her vows. I promise to love you, to cherish you, and to always be open with you. I promise to work every day to rebuild your trust and to show you how much you mean to me. As we exchanged rings, a symbol of our renewed commitment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This was a new beginning, a chance to move forward with love and trust. After the ceremony, we celebrated with our friends and family, enjoying a delicious meal and dancing under the stars. It was a magical evening, filled with laughter, joy, and love. As the night drew to a close, Emily and I took a moment to ourselves, standing under the twinkling lights and holding each other close. Thank you for this, Emily said, her voice filled with emotion. It means so much to me. Thank you, I replied, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and love. I am so glad we did this. We stood there holding each other, feeling the warmth of our renewed commitment. The road ahead was still uncertain, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges to face, but we were ready to face them together. The vow renewal ceremony was a powerful reminder of our love and commitment. It gave us the strength and determination to keep working on our relationship, to keep building a future together filled with love, trust, and happiness. In the weeks that followed, we continued to nurture our relationship, finding new ways to connect and grow together. We took up new hobbies, traveled to new places, and made time for each other, ensuring that our bond remained strong. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, Emily turned to me with a smile. "Patty, I am so grateful for this second chance. For us." I squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of love and contentment. "Me too, Emily. We've come a long way, and I'm so proud of us." As we watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape, I felt a renewed sense of hope and optimism. Our journey was far from over, but we were on the right path, moving forward with love, trust, and a shared commitment to building a beautiful future together. With our renewed vows serving as a strong foundation, Emily and I felt more united than ever. Our relationship was not without its challenges, but we faced each one together, with honesty and a commitment to growth. We continued to attend therapy sessions with Dr. Harris, finding them invaluable for maintaining open communication and addressing any lingering issues. One of the most significant changes was our newfound ability to talk about difficult topics without fear or anger. It was liberating to know that we could confront our problems head-on and come out stronger on the other side. One Saturday morning, as we enjoyed breakfast on our newly renovated porch, Emily looked at me with a contemplative expression. "Patty, I've been thinking about something important." "What's on your mind?" I asked, sipping my coffee. "I want us to start a family," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know it's a big step, and I understand if you're not ready yet. But I feel like we've come so far, and I believe we can provide a loving, supportive home for a child." Her words took me by surprise, but as I looked into her eyes, I saw the sincerity and hope there. I had thought about starting a family too, but the fear of whether we were truly ready had always held me back. "I've been thinking about that too," I admitted, setting my coffee down. "It's a big decision, and it scares me, but I also believe in us, and I think we could be amazing parents." Emily's face lit up with a smile. "Really? You mean it?" "Yeah," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I mean it. Let's take this journey together, one step at a time." We spent the next few months preparing for the possibility of starting a family. We talked to friends who had children, read books, and even took a parenting class. It was an exciting and sometimes overwhelming process, but it brought us even closer together. One evening, after a particularly long day, we sat on the couch, looking through a baby name book. It felt surreal to be planning for something so significant, but it also felt right. "What do you think of the name Sophia for a girl?" Emily asked, her eyes twinkling. "I like it," I said, smiling. "And what about Liam for a boy?" She nodded, a soft smile on her lips. "Liam is perfect." As we continued to discuss names and dreams for our future child, I felt a deep sense of contentment. This was the life we were building together, a life filled with love, trust, and hope. Months later, Emily surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. We had been cautiously optimistic, knowing that it might take time, but the joy and excitement of hearing those words was indescribable. "We are going to be parents," she said, tears of happiness in her eyes. I pulled her into my arms, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "We are, and I couldn't be happier." The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparations. We turned one of the guest rooms into a nursery, complete with a crib, soft pastel colors, and adorable decorations. Our friends and family were incredibly supportive, and the anticipation grew with each passing day. Throughout the pregnancy, we attended prenatal classes and continued our therapy sessions, ensuring that we remained connected and supportive of each other. We talked openly about our hopes and fears, knowing that this new chapter would bring its own set of challenges and joys. One warm spring morning, Emily went into labor. The hours that followed were intense and emotional, but as I held her hand and encouraged her through each contraction, I felt an overwhelming sense of awe and gratitude. We were about to meet our child, a symbol of our love and commitment. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, our baby girl was born. As the nurse placed her in Emily's arms, I felt tears streaming down my face. She was perfect, a tiny miracle that had brought us full circle. "Welcome to the world, Sophia," Emily whispered, her voice filled with love and wonder. I leaned in, kissing both Emily and our newborn daughter. "You did amazing, Emily. She is beautiful." The days and weeks that followed were filled with sleepless nights, diaper changes, and endless feedings. It was exhausting and challenging, but it was also the most rewarding experience of our lives. We worked together as a team, supporting each other through the ups and downs of new parenthood. One night, as we sat in the nursery rocking Sophia to sleep, Emily looked at me with a contented smile. "I can't believe how far we've come, Patty. From the darkest days to this beautiful moment. I am so grateful for our journey." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and love. "Me too, Emily. We've faced so much, but we've come out stronger. And now we have Sophia, a testament to our love and commitment." As we watched our daughter sleep, I felt a profound sense of peace. Our journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been filled with growth, love, and hope. We had rebuilt our relationship from the ground up, and now we were building a future for our family. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its own challenges, but I knew that we would face them together, with the same determination and love that had brought us this far. Our future was bright, and I was excited to see where it would lead. As the years went by, our love and commitment only grew stronger. We celebrated milestones, faced obstacles, and cherished every moment together. Our journey had taught us the importance of trust, communication, and unwavering support, and we carried those lessons with us every day. Looking back, I realized that the pain and betrayal we had experienced had ultimately strengthened our bond. It had forced us to confront our issues, to grow as individuals and as a couple, and to build a relationship that was stronger and more resilient than ever before. And as I held Emily and Sophia close, I knew that our love would continue to guide us, no matter what challenges lay ahead. We had built something beautiful together, and I was grateful for every step of our journey. Our future was filled with endless possibilities, and I was ready to embrace it, hand in hand with the woman I loved and the family we had created.